Well, I'm very pleased to say joining me today on Talking Pints is Falklands veteran Simon Weston CBE. Simon, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for coming. And before I forget, happy 60th birthday, which was last Sunday, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sunday, yeah. I feel incredibly privileged to have got that far.
You've got every reason to. And I have to say, I read the interview you did with Lord Ashcroft, Michael Ashcroft, in the Mail on Sunday. And I've read and seen lots of the stuff that you've said and done over these long years, 40 years next year since the Falklands. And we've met a few times over the years as well. And I've never heard you or seen you speak perhaps quite as graphically, and let's not spend too long on it, but you spent a lot of time in that interview talking about Bluff Cove, 8th of June, 82, how frankly awful it was. But you did say that you felt you were the luckiest man alive. And I thought, that's really interesting, because you've been through, I mean, hey, I've had a plane crash, road traffic accident, I've had some time, I mean, I've been smashed about a bit, but nothing compared to the trauma that you were put through. And was it 90 operations that you've had?
90 some plus, yeah.
And you spent, I mean, basically, if you add it all up, you spent years in hospital.
Yeah, with roughly about 6 years, I think, something like that, when you add it all up in total. But it's over a sort of 39-year period.
Yeah, it is still quite, it's still quite a lot, Simon, isn't it? You know,
it is.
But I thought, despite everything, the fact that you said, I'm the luckiest man alive, means you've come out of this experience still with a positive attitude towards life.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you learn a lot through age, and I won't necessarily run down the road of wisdom, but you learn a lot, and you learn a lot about yourself, and it's the people who come into your life. But I've always lived by a simple philosophy. It's not so much about what happens in your life, it's more about what you do about it, what you're prepared to do about it that counts. Because, as you say, you've had nasty knocks, you've had bumps, but you still have to go on. You know, you've only got two ways to go. You either die or you get on with it.
Yeah.
So, and it's what you make of that bad job. And I was told by a young paratrooper who was in hospital with me, and I said to him, Grant, I said, how do you cope? I said, he was younger than me, he was only 18, and he'd lost his leg, and there was a potential he might lose his other. And he went, hell, just make the best of a bad job. And I just took that philosophy to heart, really. Just make the best of a bad job.
Was this on the, because there was like a troop ship that...
No, it was in Woolwich Hospital, Queen Elizabeth Military in Woolwich, when we were wise enough to still have military hospitals.
I know. They all got closed, didn't they? Which was pretty crazy. So how long was it on the hospital ship going back from the Falklands?
I was 3.5 weeks on board the ship before they decided to send me up to Montevideo in Uruguay.
Yep.
So they put me on board a logistics ship. There were 4 of these little things, the Hydra, Heckler, Herald and the Joker. And they put me on the Hydra, sent me up to Montevideo, put me on the RAF, and the plane decided to lose its engine and crash. They sent out a replacement.
You were going through quite a time, weren't you, one way or another?
Do you know, I was doing a dinner for the Children's Air Ambulance up near Nottingham somewhere. And I was telling that story. I was trying to think of all sort of flying stories for the reason of the air ambulance. And I was telling that story, and a chap came up to me, very tall, elegant chap, very smartly dressed, and he said, I remember that story. I said, well, thank you for the validation, but why would you remember it? He said, oh, I ought to. I was in charge of the maintenance of that aircraft. I wanted to shake him warmly by the throat at that point. But yeah,
so off you go. You're 20 years old, and from what I can see, you like beer, rugby.
Love my rugby, yeah.
Yeah, so just a normal young lad, and you join the local regiment, off you go, you get severely wounded, you come back, it takes years and years away from your life. But as I said already, you know, there were obviously some dark moments going through it all, there must have been, but you've come out of it, and you've made the best of it in every way that you possibly can. And your life now, Simon, because I was fascinated to see that you did have a go for politics at one point in time. And this is a really extraordinary story, that you put your name forward to be Police and Crime Commissioner, and because of a minor misdeed in your teens, you were disqualified.
Well, I wasn't so much disqualified as I was getting hounded by somebody in the press who was trying to make a bigger issue out of it. And I had a younger son who was not coping with life as well as I would have hoped, mostly because of my public sort of profile.
Yeah.
And I wanted to protect him more than anything else. And I'll be fair to Theresa May, she was incredibly supportive of the situation. And she said that the law that they were bringing in to surround the Police and Crime Commissioner about having committed a jailable offence wasn't intended for things that you did when you were 14.
Yeah.
And she was really positive. She tried to support me tremendously and tried to convince me to stay on with it. And I thank her very much for that, because it made me realise that my misdemeanour as a child didn't have to reflect on me as an adult. And for all the things I'd done, and I was in my 50s at the time, all the things that I'd done, really, I made amends for what I did wrong. But that was always going to be there, and I think people were using it for the wrong reasons.
It's a rough game, politics.
Yeah, I kind of got a glimpse of that.
Yeah, no, it is a rough game.
And you need to have a thicker skin, and perhaps I don't have that thick skin for that type of environment. If you're going to criticise me for something I do or I say, but don't criticise me for the actions of being a child and making a mistake.
No, I mean, I have to say that I think that law needs looking at. Why someone should be disbarred for a misdemeanour age 14 does need looking at for lots of jobs.
And the double jeopardy law, because if you've got 2 strikes on your history before you're 18, it doesn't matter, they can still disbar you from certain careers.
Yeah.
And I think we need to look at that, because everybody's made mistakes when they're young, and most of us can honestly say, well, I was very fortunate I didn't get caught. And I don't think that we should penalise people for drinking when you're 14 and maybe something else that you've done, shoplifting a bag of sweets, as long as you don't carry on your career of obvious notorious crime for a bag of sweets, as long as you curtail that and you realise you made an error, then we should be able to sort of offer the olive branch and wait till they're 21, 25 or whatever, and say, okay, it's wiped clean, and then crack on, become a teacher, become a social worker. You're obviously not turning into being an arch criminal.
Or a charity fundraiser, which you've done a huge amount of.
I've been very fortunate to be able to do all the things I've done. Opportunities came my way, and I was able to grab them, and I'm still enjoying that side of my life.
And a CBE.
And a CBE, got OB, got a...
It's not bad, is it?
Didn't expect any of them, thrilled. I'm thrilled as much for my mother as anybody else, because for parents it really does mean a huge amount more. And I'm thrilled for my mum,
Because we nearly did a charity do together, didn't we? Do you remember that telephone conversation we had? It was the TV show Celebrity Hunted, wasn't it? Do you remember?
Yeah.
They were talking about pairing us up on it, but it never quite happened.
For whatever reason, it didn't happen. It would have been fun. I understand that people were interested in doing it, but it would have been a laugh. It would have been a huge bit of fun. Running around the countryside waiting to...
I'm not sure the two of us trying to be disguised and not be recognised would have necessarily been very successful.
I'm not sure how you'd have hidden me in a crowd.
Well, I'm the same, I think. At the time, I certainly was. It was. No, you've done a lot for charity. So, Simon, you're pretty fit. I can see that. And you sort of work out in the gym 2 or 3 times a week, and you're pretty busy with what you do. So what next? What's the next big chapter for Simon Weston?
There are some opportunities that are going on, things that are happening. There's a new product in the agricultural world, and the guy who created it, his statement was that he wants to try and help feed the world, and that's something I'm very interested in helping to grow, if you pardon the pun. But so that's going on. I've got my own security company, which is facilities management. We do security and cleaning, which is great fun, hard work, more for my business partner than it is for me. So Paul is constantly awake at night. But we've got that going on. So there's lots of different things that I'm doing. But I'd like to continue in the charity world and to do more in the TV and the public side of life. Because I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and doing this is great.
No,
fun.
You've done it phenomenally well. And when you look back at it all, and since the Falklands, we've had Afghanistan. We've just left after 20 years, and the Taliban are back taking provincial cities. It's quite a depressing. I think for the veterans of that conflict, it must be very tough to watch what's going on. We've had Iraq. which I know you were very sceptical.
Yeah,
Very sceptical.
very critical of the reasons we went into Iraq. Mr. Blair and Mr. Bush, they knew the judgments they were making were false. You know, they knew there was no chemical factories or nuclear factories.
45 minutes until, you know, we could all be destroyed.
It was never true, and the pictures and the images they showed was never true. So, you know, and people lost their lives because of it, and hundreds of thousands of civilians died.
Yes.
When there was no need for that. So yeah, I mean, I was hugely critical of it. But when the Taliban and Al Qaeda started doing what they did, then yes, there had to be a call to arms, and people had to do something to try and stop them perpetuating their evil sort of mantra. But you know, you always have to have service people, because when evil people won't listen to reason,
yes,
there has to be people to stand up and take that chance. And we get paid the money to do the job, not for our opinion. So I wasn't really offering an opinion when I went to the Falklands.
No, but when you look back at it, Simon, you know, I say you're very critical of Iraq and the reasons for it. When you look back at the Falklands and what we did and the reasons we did it for, do you have doubts in your mind about what you did and what you were part of?
Never had any doubts. Never had any doubts. I know some of my friends and some of my colleagues from my regiment have reservations, but we're lucky enough with hindsight to be able to judge things differently. But I just look at it that there were nearly 2,000 people that had the right to their own independence, the right to freedom, right to self-determination. They had the right to democracy, and no drunken wife-beater from a junta had the right to deny them of that. And that's what we went down to remove them from. Whatever the politics are and whatever they were, that was nothing to do with me. I was a soldier paid to do a job. Unfortunately, didn't really get to do that job. Got injured in the process of trying to go and do it. But, you know, and there was a lot of very good men who went and did, and a lot of them didn't come back. So, you know, I'm full of admiration and pride for all of those guys that I served alongside, even though I didn't know some of them. And there were some incredible people who showed you the way to live afterwards as well. You know, and you see that from Afghanistan, Iraq, still the same spirit, the same people who've been very badly injured, who just carry it on. You know, it's not
I have to say, Simon, you are an inspiring role model for people of all ages who go through terrible misfortune, whether it's through car accidents or military wounds or whatever it may be, and you know, you've come through the most astonishing adversity. Gosh, he's going to be a national institution one day, I think.
Maybe in one.
Well, I've got to say, Simon, thank you very much indeed. That was Simon Weston on Talking Pints. Great stuff.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.